Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Lunch with League. My name is Diane McNutt, and I am president of League of Women Voters of San Jose, Santa Clara, and we also serve the cities of Milpitas, Morgan Hill, and Gilroy. The League of Women Voters is a nonprofit, nonpartisan political organization. Our purpose is to encourage informed and active participation in government and to influence public policy through education and advocacy. We do not support or oppose any political party or candidate. We have just completed a very busy election season. Our volunteers provided voter education through dozens of events, including candidate forums, pros and cons presentations, Vote 411, and voter registration events. We want to thank all of the individuals and community organizations who participated, excuse me, and helped so many voters. We are celebrating these achievements and the more than 50 new members that we've added in 2024 at our annual holiday party on Monday, December 9th. It will be held at the historic and charming San Jose Clubhouse on Union Avenue in the Cambrian area. Our theme is Mix and Mingle, Vino and Jingle. There'll be hearty hors d'oeuvres and wine included in a $35 per person cost. We hope that you'll sign up right away on our website because space is limited, and I'll be posting the website URL in our chat section in a minute. Before we totally check off the 2024 election is done and dusted, we are very excited to have today's program on elections in California with our two guest speakers. Dave Lesher is co-founder and editor-in-chief of Cal Matters, a nonprofit news organization that covers statewide politics and policies. Moryt is editor of San Jose Spotlight, a nonprofit newsroom that covers local politics and policy. Dave earned his journalism degree from Cal State Long Beach and worked at the LA Times, California Journal Magazine, the New America Foundation, and the Public Policy Institute of California before starting Cal Matters. Moryt is a graduate of Case Western Reserve University and has worked in several local newsrooms and as a media consultant in the Bay Area, including almost 6 years as editor of the San Jose Business Journal. She served as editorial advisor to San Jose Spotlight for 2 years before joining the staff full-time earlier this year. Together, these two veteran journalists will share their insights about our recent elections and what the election results might say about our future. Moderating today's discussion will be Roma Dawson, who is on our board of directors and also co-president of the League Bay Area. If you have any questions for the speakers, please enter them in chat, and Roma will get to as many as she can in the next hour. So welcome to Dave and Moryt, and Roma, the microphone is all yours.
Thanks so much, Diane, and welcome everybody. You can tell we have two very distinguished people with us today with long backgrounds in journalism. However, you may not be that familiar with what each of them are doing today. So let's begin, and Dave, we'll start with you, but let's begin with each of you telling us a little bit about your organization, how it came into being, and what you view as your mission.
Thank you so much, Roma. And I apologize, I'm coming to you, I'm speaking at another event, and I asked for a room where I could talk, and they gave me a little bit of a closet, so so we'll make it work. And thank you for all the work that the League of Women Voters does. I mean, you know, helping democracy work better is very important. I think it's part of the mission of Cal Matters, and I really hope that what we talk about today, what I want to show you about some of the work we do, will be helpful to what you're trying to do as well. So Cal Matters started 9 years ago. I was a co-founder along with a couple of people who helped raise the money. You know, obviously we kind of built this in response to the decline in media coverage. You know, I wasn't at the LA Times for about 20 years. I was a reporter on White House campaigns and an editor, and then in the Sacramento Bureau, and for the kind of Gray Davis and Pete Wilson administrations. And the press corps was very different. It was at least 5 or 8 times bigger than it is now. And the policy making process was different as a result. I mean, it's become much more insider and much more opaque. And so Cal Matters today has exceeded any of my expectations, but we now have more than 90 full-time employees. We are on radio and TV almost every day, all over the state and in print. and obviously on our website, calmatters.org. We have reporters who cover all of the major topics at the state level, healthcare, education, environment, justice, politics, economy. And we share all of our work with media around the state for free. So, we are now easily the largest news organization in California covering the state.
Moryt?
I also thank you again, Roma, for having us today. I think it's really important. The more people get to know who's out there trying to give them the news, the better it is for all of us. I guess I've been in the industry probably as long as Dave. My focus has always been in local community journalism. I've been doing it for about more than 20 years now. And it was that reason that I came back after working with as the editor-in-chief of the Silicon Valley Business Journal, to come back into local journalism, not a B2B product. And so San Jose Spotlight is now going into its 6th year. It'll be 6 years old. And it was co-founded by Ramona Gawaris and Josh Baruz. Ramona is an award-winning reporter, broke many stories. And so she had a love for the local community. And Josh himself, he also has been very embedded within the community. He's the executive director of the San Jose Spotlight, and he is the one that puts together a lot of the different community partnerships to help Spotlight grow and reach. I think one of the beauties between what we do on the local level and what Cal Matters do is that I really see it as a compliment for us. And Dave, I have to tell you, I read it every single day because I look at all your stories and go, how can we localize it? And you bring it from that higher state level, and we'll then look to see how we can take it down into our community and make sure that our residents find the impact of what you're reporting as well. So I think it's a really important synergistic relationship. I was mentioning to Roma earlier before we came on, I don't know if people are really aware of this, but every week 2.5 newspapers fold in this country. It's a very serious situation. There are a lot of places now where there's no newspaper or no digital outlet like Cal Matters or San Jose Spotlight at all. So I think we're really blessed out here to have this depth of news that we get. In terms of San Jose Spotlight, they started that our paper started basically because of the disappearance of local journalism. The lack of government reporting on the local level, the lack of looking at helping to uplift marginalized communities on the local level, all of that local news coverage was dissipating. And that's why San Jose Spotlight formed, why it became a nonprofit, which is a very different thing from a profit company. Like, I'm not picking on my neighbors down the road, the Mercury News, but they are a for-profit organization. And those organizations are really beholden to who's at the top, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a hedge fund, whether it's somebody who bought the paper, but there is usually less liberties for people to be able to write what they want. There can be times when the publisher could say, no, you can't put that in print. We don't have that. We're non-biased. We rely on grants, we rely on donations, we rely on sponsorships, a few advertisements, but basically we are our own people. And that was the reason that this paper was built out to be what it is. We are also free. We do not hide behind a paywall. Anybody can read what we have. We're never going to put a paywall up. We want that information out there so that everybody can read it. And when the paper was started, it basically came about because Ramona wanted to fill the hole of local news. And so Spotlight focused predominantly on San Jose. It has since stretched out into Santa Clara County. Of this year, we pushed even further out. So we're in the West Valley and Cupertino, Los Gatos, Campbell, also Santa Clara and Sunnyvale. And we did that because we heard people say, can you cover our communities? Can you give us the news out there? We're a small newsroom. We only have 5 reporters. There are 2 editors, and we have somebody who does our audience engagement specialist. That's somebody who takes our news stories and then pushes it out on digital platforms like Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and Facebook. Besides that, we also, wait, is that me or you guys hear that? Maybe that's, these are the paper thin walls I'm in. And
I think you're okay, Moryt.
yeah,
I think you're okay.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
And so basically for us, we want to honor local journalism as best we can. We want to make sure that we can produce the most amount of stories that provide civic engagement. We want to educate our residents, and we basically want to make sure that we're strengthening democracy on a grassroots level.
Well, I want to add a personal note and thank you both. A lot of your content is free. For our listeners out there that don't realize that, I know I do some work at a state level for League of Women Voters, and I religiously read Cal Matters for tips and what's going on, and that's free. I know you both appreciate donations very much, but I just want to point out to everyone that you are very generous in the content you provide to the public at no charge. And of course, Spotlight, we in League track local government, and so we are constantly reading and sharing your articles on Spotlight. And now we have a real treat in store. Dave and his team at Cal Matters have developed a new tool called Digital Democracy that, if you read your invitation, allows access to in-depth information about state government and our legislators. And I'm very excited that Dave's agreed to do a demo for us. Now, let me remind you, we will pause for some Q&A after Dave concludes the demo. This will be your only opportunity to ask a question about digital democracy. So please do enter directly into chat as Dave does this demo if you have any questions. Now, Dave, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Roma. And I'm glad to be able to share this. This is something I am really excited about. I've been working on it with Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and 10 Up, a web development firm, for the last year. It's a remarkable database and technology project with artificial intelligence that I really think is going to be a part of the future of journalism. So basically, digital democracy, real quickly, is a giant database. It's 100 different data sources that we pull from throughout state government. Every word uttered in a public meeting for the last several years, every dollar given to a legislator, every vote cast, every bill introduced, election results, census data, it all goes into one database so it can be queried with one query. And then we put this layer of artificial intelligence over it to analyze the data. So there are 2 things we do with that database. One is, and I'll give you a demonstration here. Let me share my screen. One is I think you should be able to see my screen. Good. One is we created this database or this website it's informed by the database, and this is designed for a general public audience. It's if you are not an expert, you are not an insider, but you want to learn about your legislator or you want to learn about a topic. What is the California agenda on education or environment or healthcare? And there aren't very many trusted sources to go to. Most legislators get virtually no media coverage. So the information out there about them, even if you want to Google them, a lot of it comes from either them promoting themselves or their opponents. And so to create a portal where people can get, fact-based, trusted information about their legislators and about the agenda, I think it's to encourage civic engagement. I also think the transparency will change the decision-making process in California, because I can talk a lot about this, but it's a lot more opaque than it used to be. And I think digital democracy is really kind of cracking the code on some of the, what's happening. So let me show you really quickly what it can do. This is the gateway to the whole database, but I can type in any word. Actually, let me type in fentanyl. A topic that a subject that might be discussed in the legislature. And I can see all the bills that mentioned the word fentanyl. And I can see all of the times the word fentanyl was mentioned in a public meeting. And I can click here and I can go straight to the transcript.
And two disturbing trends have really dramatically increased the dangers of fentanyls and fentanyl.
The transcript and the video of every time that word was uttered in a public meeting. There's a page for every single hearing, and you can see the agenda for every bill that was discussed. There's a page for every bill, of course. I can see, the votes for that bill. I can see the supporters and opponents of that bill. And then there's a page for, I'm going really fast, so I apologize, but there's quite a tour. There's a page for every single legislator. And you can see, we're trying to signal immediately that this is not a site for insiders. There's this banner image that comes from that legislator's district. There's the stories that we've done about that legislator. There are a couple data visualizations that pull from the data. And there's an interactive tool here that I think is pretty interesting. But I can look at any, I'm just going to take California Teachers Association because they are very active. I can type in any organization that has taken a position on a bill in California, and I can see how often this legislator has voted in alignment with that group. And I can see how much money CTA has given to that legislator. So there's a variety of other things on the website. Here are the topic pages where you can see the agenda for the state, all the top bills, all the key players, what's happening in California on those topics. You can look at the legislature by various demographics, gender, age, ethnicity, and there's a fun thing here that the top 10 list, who has the highest poverty district, who has the most bills passed. The legislators have actually gotten a lot of, they gave away awards at their annual celebration for who was the most talkative. So that's just a quick, real quick look at the website. But the other way we use the database is that the artificial intelligence is trained to look for story ideas for reporters. And when it sees a story idea, it will write a one-page, what we call a tip sheet. And that tip sheet has I'll show you one. This is a kind of prototype. This is being redesigned, so to clean it up a little bit. But anyway, the AI writes this story idea, and you can see here the AI picked out that in this vote, and this is a bill about the accuracy of healthcare provider lists. Senator Richard Roth, who has, voted in alignment with the California Medical Association many times and has received money from them, voted against them. So that the AI picks that out and says, reporter, here, take a look at this. Here's the background on the bill. And then here is this is the relationship chart that I think, shows I can look at any organization that has taken a position for or against this bill, and I can see their relationship to all the legislators on that committee. In this case, all these legislators consistently vote with California Medical Association, 80 to 90% of the time. CMA has given them, most of them, money, but they voted against CMA. So another thing for a reporter to look at. And then it pulls these quotes from the hearing, and I can click straight through to the transcript, but it's looking for quotes for and against this bill. from people who testify as well as from legislators. So the point being that my goal with the tip sheets is that the Modesto Bee reporter who doesn't know that much about the legislature and who doesn't have a lot of time can look at this tip sheet and see a story that they can turn around in a couple hours. And we're going to give this tip sheet to every reporter in California who wants to cover their legislator. And if we can get more coverage at the local level of state legislators, that will be a significant game changer. So it's really, like I said, it's kind of cutting edge and a kind of a future of journalism, but I really think it's going to make a big difference.
Dave, I have a question already entered into chat from Marianne Shovlin. It says, is the database using AI for its information results or people analysis?
It does people analysis to the extent that you know, whether you're a legislator or somebody who just testifies in a meeting or a lobbyist or organization, there is a page on Digital Democracy for You, and all of the data that's collected about you, every time you took a position on a bill, every time you testified, anytime you gave money, it's all on that page about you. So it's kind of presenting the information about people, about organizations, about legislators. And then the tip sheets are just for reporters, not for the public, but they kind of do this AI analysis, at least an early level. We're training the AI. It's gotten a lot better this year. It's going to be better next year. But it's been a fascinating experience.
Could you mention, I think right at the beginning, you said something about organizations or what the sources are for the data, the original source data?
Yeah, it's all public government documents. And that's why the AI is a custom-made AI. This is not an LLM like ChatGPT, so it does not hallucinate. The data comes from the Secretary of State's office, from the Fair Political Practices Commission, from the legislature itself, and all of the information in the tip sheets and elsewhere in Digital Democracy is sourced. You can link to the original source, which is all public government data.
Great, thank you. Oh, Moryt, please, go ahead.
I want to ask Dave a question. When is this available?
I mean, really, it's available in just a couple of weeks. We kind of did a beta test we shared tip sheets with 5 reporters around the state at other media for the month of August, just to see that we could generate stories off these tip sheets. And we took that feedback, and now we're redesigning that tip sheet. And my job between now and January is to go around and share this and train people on what it is and how to use it. So
I'm sure we would be very interested.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the case study for it.
I think a lot of us are very interested, and I hope you'll let us know when it goes live so we can send it out to all our members. I was interested in the feature where you're tracking money and contributions. I think I saw one where it had the oil industry as under the menu. League of Women Voters nationally did a study on money and politics. I think it was around 2017. So that's something that we as League pay attention to, but it's difficult to track at the local level. And Moryt, I think you're starting to do a little bit of that with Spotlight. Did I hear that mentioned the other day?
In what way?
In terms of tracking contributions and
oh, yes. But I think Dave's tool might make it easier for us in the future. But basically that's exactly what we did. We have something on our website right now, right? When you go to the home page, right up at the banner, the nav bar, it says election 2024. And there's when you click that on, you'll see something that says follow the money. And so we have accounted for all of the contributions that were made, all the expenditures that were made with all of the candidates this year. But we had one reporter that very diligently going through all the forms. I'm sure AI could do it much faster.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just wanted to get that little plug in there for what you did, and thanks to Ann Clark, who's encouraging people to contribute to Spotlight and be donors so you can expand your areas of coverage. And I'm sure
Appreciate that.
Cal Matters also welcomes any contributions and depends on them. So seeing that there aren't any more questions, we're going to move on to the next part of the program. And of course, Diane mentioned earlier about League being nonpartisan. We pride ourselves on that. And we do both voter service and advocacy on policy issues. We build a firewall to protect the voter service information we provide. So I'm going to ask each of you, you've both had such extensive experience. Could you reflect on the recent election and its implications? Again, I encourage folks to enter into chat. And Moryt, I'm going to start with you this time. Again, Spotlight had a really interesting program yesterday where you had your reporters calling out things on the election. Do you have anything that stood out to you personally, or something you'd like to mention about what your reporters called out?
Well, I think there were a couple of things. One, of course, it was incredibly busy on a local level, just to sort of set the table here. I mean, we had 4 city council seats that were up for election. 2 of them were from prior appointments that were made back in 2022. So we call it the even year elections. It was a 2, 6, 8, and 10. Those seats were up for election. We had 2 supervisor seats that were up for election, very well-known political individuals within our community. Of course, Cindy Chavez and Joe Simitian, both of them are terming out. So after many, many years of them holding those seats, what I think is really interesting is we are now going to have this incredible diverse situation going on in the supervisors, board of supervisors in the county. We're going to have one Chinese person, one Japanese person, one Vietnamese person, one Latina individual, as well as one white person. I don't think we have ever had anything that diverse at all in Santa Clara County. We might have it in our population, but we certainly didn't have it as our elected officials sitting on a board. So that to me, I think will be very, very interesting to see what happens this year on what the focus is. And then we had this whole big dust up, I want to call it, between Congressional District 16, between Sam Liccardo and Evan Lowe, that I know that my reporter Brandon talked about it in length yesterday, but I think what was pretty remarkable was that it actually started out as a 3-way tie between Evan Lowe, Joe Simitian, and Sam Liccardo. And I'm sure that that's an anomaly. And then how it whittled down in a recount to 2 people. I think there was a lot of political back and forth. There was a lot of political nastiness. I don't think that's any different than any other year in an election at all. I just think the only difference is that maybe it's more visible today. And I'll leave my thoughts on why somewhere else. But
Okay, well, we can get to that later.
yeah, we can get to that later. But I mean, other than that, I think what's really important is that a lot of what people voted for this time around was, even on the local level, was for change. They want to see blight gone. They want to see homelessness resolved. They want to see housing, more affordable housing. I mean, and massively huge issues that just aren't going to happen overnight. So those are things for me that really stood out during this election cycle.
Thanks. And Dave, with over 30 years covering elections all over the state of California, I'm not going to pin you down on anything specific, but if you could just start out by just what stands out to you about this recent recent elections in this state?
Yeah, wow.
So much.
I kind of watched the mega trends, especially, California is a deep blue state and it has been for a long time. I mean, I actually, was covering the Sacramento Bureau when Wilson was governor, and, it was more of a competitive state. But ever since then, it's been pretty solid blue. And I think, I mean, the biggest shocking thing to me was, I'm sure you all saw nationally, just that, Harris underperformed Biden across people of color, across women, across suburban, urban, across age groups. It was across a lot of different categories. So, how did that land in California? And, I mean, we saw unquestionably a lot of it, different indicators that the state ticked, to the right, this deep blue state. Harris got 59% of the vote for president in California, which is the lowest that any Democratic presidential candidate has gotten in over 20 years. The Republican registration has been going down, 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 down for over 20 years. It ticked up for the first time. Republicans are going to pick up 3 seats in the legislature, and 2 of those seats are in heavily Latino districts. Obviously, there were the 2 progressive DAs in Alameda County and LA that both lost. And then on the ballot, you saw, I mean, voters rejected minimum wage and, the slavery issue in prisons and rent control and lower thresholds for, taxes to build infrastructure. And they approved, tougher criminal sentences. And then, 2 other indicators. Newsom's approval rating right now is 44%, which is tied for the lowest he's had since he was elected. And the number of people who think the state is on the right track is now down to 36%, which is as low as or 38%, which is as low as it's been in 10 years. So, like I say, California has been kind of on a steady, predictable, direction for years and years and years. And so I will be watching to see, if these trends continue, to see if the Republican Party is energized in some ways. I mean, the Republican Party in California has hardly made very much of an attempt to put up really competitive candidates in some big races for the last couple of years. I will be watching to see how Democrats respond to the indicators. If you saw, Gavin Newsom is going around to all the counties today that went or yesterday that voted for Trump. And so, and then, we're about to go into California being the big resistance state, and at the same time, trying to accommodate whatever this, I would call it a small shift right now in California, but if it's just for me, covering politics in California, if the state, if there was any change in the direction of the Democrat vote from Latinos, or in the overwhelming Democratic vote in California, that would be a game changer. It would be a very different state.
Well, let me go ahead and ask a question that was submitted in advance in terms of the ballot propositions. And again, Dave, please share if the way the voters supported or opposed ballot measures, if you saw a trend there. But basically the question was that there seemed to be a theme and that they voted against 5 and 6 and 33 and then yes on 36. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, like I say, I think it's obviously a shift to the right. These are things that you would have expected California to pass. And California did pass the 2 bonds, education and climate. I do think that crime has been a pendulum that, swings to pretty extremes in California, back and forth, and it's swinging back towards more tough on crime. I think the economic anxiety, I think is partly behind some of these votes, but to me, it'll be whether there's a mega trend here whether the state continues to behave in this kind of way politically.
So you think it's too early to call it a trend?
It's still too early to call it a trend. I mean, if this direction is continued to repeat it, to me, I mean, California is still very politically democratic, very blue. It's still got a very liberal legislature. And, you know, it will become the resistance state. It is going to be, you know, at war with President Trump for the next couple of years. But I do think, you know, this is something that anybody in trying to read the leaves in politics in California is going to watch to see what kind of how this undercurrent maintains itself.
Moryt, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was just listening to what Dave said, and I think one of the things that we've done a lot of coverage on is, particularly in Silicon Valley, Santa Clara, is the huge inequities that we have in our own little part of the world down here. And I think many people today who are low income or working a minimum wage job, they can't really survive in Silicon Valley, in Santa Clara. And the biggest indicator of that is when you look at the schools. The schools, particularly on the east side of San Jose, on the north side, they are all losing students at an alarming rate. And that's because the families can no longer afford to live in Santa Clara County. So I think to Dave's point, one of the things that we're looking at is a really serious economic problem. And it'll be the wealthy that'll survive and everybody else will not down here. And I do think that without getting, you know, extremely political, that the messaging is not there. I think most people, when you talk to most people today, at least in South County, they're saying, hey, I need to pay my rent. I need to feed my family. I need to make sure my kids are well educated. And I don't particularly think they care about anything else right now. Does that mean that the state shifts red? Probably not. But the issue is, how do you solve these big ticket items? Because people are really struggling down here. We did a report that said it takes 4 minimum wage jobs to be able to pay rent in California and down here in Santa Clara County. That's not a livable situation when 38% of your income is going towards your rent. It's just not sustainable. So how do those problems, you know, how does that turn around? I don't know. The challenges are great. So it took us a while to get here. It's going to take us a while to get out of it. That's the way I think I see it.
Well, we certainly will probably be doing some more programming that touch on affordable housing and some of the wealth disparity you're talking about. I want to ask a question that Diane just entered into chat. Do you think California will be a prime target for deportation of undocumented, and what would be the impact on our local and state economies? And Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, California, I think, would be, knowing the Trump White House and what he has said about California, and obviously, you know, there's a large Latino population and immigrant population here. I think California would be at the very front edge of whatever deportation ever there's going to be. I would take President Trump at his word. I think, you know, you have to expect that he's going to do what he can to deport as much as he can. I think it's obviously very difficult, and it's enormously disruptive. And you know, I think there will be as many barriers put up by California as a state and as local governments, and I think a lot of business industries will be hugely affected, and so you'll see a lot of business pushback. And so a lot will probably drag out for a long period of time, but I think, you know, the immediate effect of if he starts going down this direction, as I have no reason to think that he won't, is just the kind of anxiety and tension that we create in kind of going to battle as a state, and the fear that it creates within the immigrant community.
Yeah, I think there's a great deal of fear out there. Moryt, do you want to make a comment? Do you anticipate Spotlight will be covering local stories in terms of whatever happens?
Yeah, it's interesting because San Jose considers itself a sanctuary city.
Right.
So I don't know what kind of battle that our city, is going to experience. I mean, you have 1 million people here, and a huge majority is Latino and also Asian. So the chief of police said that they will not cooperate with ICE. I don't think that alleviates any anxiety, but we will have a problem for sure down here. Especially with Trump saying he wants to use the military. So I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, what are going to happen to these sanctuary cities? I don't know. Is he just going to say, I don't care what you call them, we're still going to go in there and deport people? And so definitely we'll cover whatever happens down this way.
Yeah, I believe our City of San Jose Sheriff and the City of San Jose Police Chief and the County Sheriff have made statements to that effect. Interesting. Well, let's go back to state politics for a moment. And Dave, one of the things that struck me is I think the turnover in the Assembly and in the House is something like 25%. With brand new newly elected legislators, and then many of the long-term committee heads, the very powerful committee heads, are termed out. So do you see this new legislative session? I won't ask you to be clairvoyant about their priorities, but how do you see it getting itself organized with all these new players on the scene?
It's going to be very important to watch. Honestly, it's going to be fairly chaotic. Yeah, we have at least 30 new legislators and maybe 33, depending on some races that are still not called. So that's about a third of the 120 legislators. And then in addition to that, we have 2 leaders of the caucuses, who are fairly new. They're only been in office for a year as the Speaker of the Assembly and the President of the Senate. And both of them for the first time come from rural areas, maybe not the first time, but a long time, not from San Francisco or LA. And then you have, the governor who is now a real lame duck, 2 years left before he's termed out. And you can see he's going to be going back to grabbing national attention as much as he can. And so it just creates this kind of really, it's a recipe for a lot of uncertainty and chaos, I think. I think they'll look for the issues that they can convene around and that pull them together. And there's a couple that will probably stick out. I think, housing, homeowners insurance is a crisis. It's starting to affect, the affordability of housing and the ability for, even construction of new housing. And they've been trying to solve that for over 2 years. And so, but that is got to be a front burner that they come back to. They just yesterday, the LAO, the legislative analyst, put out a report about how they've got deficits for the foreseeable future, that there's not an immediate budget problem, but when they look out at next year and beyond, they're seeing deficits if everything stays as it is. So they have to cut or raise taxes. And so cutting and raising taxes are 2 things that are very difficult to get a consensus about. So so that's going to be a flashpoint. I think you'll see some of the AI, some of the biggest artificial intelligence legislation was vetoed this year. That'll be back. In fact, Newsom vetoed it, but he invited people to come back. And I think, you'll see housing, homelessness. I think you'll see Newsom really leaning into it because he doesn't want to leave office without at least changing the trajectory of those problems. I mean, he's not going to solve it. It's going to take years and years and years to solve it. But, I think he needs politically, and he wants to, leave office having changed the trajectory and shown that we can what's the path to resolve these issues, at least improve the conditions. So there's some very difficult problems and some challenges and a lot of new people and new relationships.
Yeah, I see that Assemblymember Wicks out of Oakland has convened a select committee. I never quite understand how select committees function, but she's focused on streamlining, and it appears to be streamlining almost everything in government. Do you see that going anywhere, or do you have any thoughts to share on that?
I really don't. I think it's really hard to do. I mean, you know, I mean, one of the challenges is that it's real easy to create programs, but it's very hard to eliminate them. And a lot of them, they don't even collect the data where you can measure whether it's working or not, because, so, I mean, I do think there are things that they can find to improve. There's no question about it. I mean, and I think if you look at something like food stamps, we leave $2 billion in federal money on the table because the people who sign up for food stamps is nowhere near those who are eligible. And one of the reasons is that there's 58 different application processes in 58 different counties. And so if you can kind of make that easier, you bring $2 billion in money to poor communities. So, there are things that they could pick off and identify some things, but, to streamline government, Jerry Brown was asked, or a lot of people hoped he would take this on because he had a lot of power as governor, and he knew government, and he had a lot of political capital, and he didn't do it.
We just had a question come in that's right in the league's wheelhouse, and it's regarding voter turnout. Any thoughts? And Moryt, we'll start with you this time. Any thoughts on why the voter turnout was low, or lower than, I guess, last?
It is a question that we always seem to look at and never quite able to get our hands on. I honestly don't know. I think people does completely disengage. That's just my feeling. It's not a very good one, but I do know that whenever we're looking at the races, we do find that there is less voter turnout on the east side of the county, if you want to put it that way. Definitely in East Side San Jose, there's a lot of less voter turnout. I every year we look at this, and a lot of it has to do with the younger generations. It's usually the older generations that turn out to vote. And the younger generation, even though you hear a lot about them really caring about issues like climate change, transgender concerns, they don't go to the polls. And I don't really know how we get them out there, because everything that happens is for their future. But that's one of the things we see. What we will do probably down here is what we did last time, is take a deep dive into the demographics and see where the voter turnout missed the boat. Was it age? Was it ethnicity? Or was it race? What was the issue? And then we'll go out and speak to people. Other than that, all we can do, and I think Cal Matters is the same thing, is just present all the issues, talk about everything, get people to be as engaged as possible, but we can't bring them into the voting booth. And so if you've got an answer for that one, I'd love to hear it.
You want to add something, Dave? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would look at PPIC came out, Public Policy Institute of California did a report 2 days ago about the turnout, and it was striking. It's down 1.7 million voters fewer than 2020, despite 550,000 more registered voters and 1.8 million more eligible. So as a share of eligible, turnout was the largest decline in California in 50 years, and way more than the US. Turnout was down 3% nationally. It was down 11% in California. So I was, obviously that's another trend and indicator that we got to figure out.
Yeah, that was one of the most discouraging things about the election was that it went down when a lot of us thought it would go up, but oh well. I do want to get in one more quick question. They're talking about Measure R in San Jose. So Moryt, maybe this is one you'll know. It
Yeah,
says,
I saw that. I'm sorry to say, I don't know what Measure R
yeah, maybe,
is.
Lydia, could you enter in exactly what Measure R is? Was that a school, was that a school bond? Maybe she'll enter it into chat. There's another intriguing question, and and happy to share your insights, but we did have someone who asked, why did so many Latinos vote for Trump? I guess we could say that about many different demographics from what we've heard to date and from PPIC. Either of you want to start?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be looked at very closely, but
Yeah.
I think the lessons, if you know Mike Madrid, he just came out with a book about the
Yeah.
Latino vote, and really the book predicted what would happen, and it really it's basically economic issues, and that he was talking about how Latino men especially are voting more about jobs and income and security than they are about, as a Latino. And obviously overlooking issues about what President Trump said about immigrants, and actually sometimes supporting a crackdown on more immigration. So it's very complicated, and it's obviously big and important to understand, but I think that the experience, this didn't just happen. It's actually been trending in this direction. So, but I think it took a big leap. I mean, it was a 35-point shift for Latino men between Biden and Trump, which is nationally, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and could you spell it's Madrid? Is that his last name?
Yeah, Madrid. It's a
Yeah,
really good book. So,
it could be I think it'd be a very interesting book to several of our folks. We're getting close to the end now, and I do want to, first of all, put in a plug to everybody listening that you do support, even if it's a small donation. I know my donation is extremely small, but if we all do what we can to help these publications thrive, because this sort of public interest, I guess that's a fair term to use, public interest journalism is critical for what we're going to go through for the next several years in a very divided country. So we'll start with you, Moryt, and if you just want to make a few closing remarks before we end the program, and I say thank yous.
Of course. So first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I think that the work that we do is so important, because I don't know how else to get out the local messaging without really going out there and talking to our community, engaging with what matters to them the most, making sure that we aren't leaving people who are voiceless or homeless or marginalized in any way from being able to speak out. And we work really hard to do that. As well as make sure that we hold power to account in these local governments. I know somebody said it's not just about San Jose and Santa Clara County. That's why we're in Santa Clara, the city, Cupertino, Los Gatos, Campbell, Sunnyvale, and we look to spread further. But we can't do that without help from folks out there, either through donations or through grants or whatever way, because I don't know if everybody realizes it, but every reporter is supported by you. You are supporting our reporters in making sure that they do their good work and everything. And it's to us, it just really comes down to making sure that we do everything we can to keep democracy strong out there on the local level.
And Dave, I know if we go to calmatters.org, we can find a space to donate, right?
Yep, it's a big red button on the top right corner. It says donate. Yes, and
Well,
thank you for all those who have supported us, and it's the same as Spotlight. We are 100% funded by philanthropy.
Well, you're getting thank yous in chat. And again, that question was about the San Jose school bond measure. And I just want to say I'm sorry, I can't find the name of the person who submitted it, but I want to say that League of Women Voters Bay Area is very engaged in citizen oversight. And we believe that aggressive citizen oversight committees are a way to ensure that kind of accountability. And I hope they'll email our local chapter, and I'll talk to more about that. Again, thank the two of you so much. It was an honor to have you both. We're very excited that we got a preview of digital democracy. I think it's going to save all of us a lot of trouble and hopefully make people think more broadly about the issues and not be so dependent on those, dozens of heavy cardboard mailers we get very last minute. So again, thank you so much. And we will, I realize both of you are very busy and may need to leave. We're going to keep this open for just a little while as our tradition at League, in case anybody wants to ask us any questions. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Moryt, and thank you, Dave. Pleasure to have you both here.
Dave, call Ramona. She will want to do that digital democracy. We will be happy to guinea pig it.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. See you.
You bet. Thank you.